This evening, and I just want to remind everyone, on this side particular, we have to lean into the mics or pull them to us because we're not listening to a meeting.
Don't get ugly at me behind you. All right,
I got, you need one?
we have a quorum,
Yeah, next.
correct?
We have a
We
quorum.
have a quorum. Any adjustments to the agenda?
No,
Okay. Moving on to acceptance of minutes first, March 4th, 2026. I have a motion from Dwight. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Nobody opposed. Moving on to March 11th, 2026. I'll entertain a motion. Dwight is on a roll.
Second.
Greg seconds. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Moving on to development review. Old business, 77 Turtle Run Road. Don, what I'd ask you to do is go ahead and go down through the facts just to bring us up to date, and we'll go from there.
the last meeting that you discussed this, one of the owners was here and indicated that they don't want to change anything because it's gone back and forth a little bit the year we've been reviewing it. What to do?
Look closer, Don.
I'm sorry. What they want to do is ultimately keep the existing uses, the existing infrastructure and not change anything. Just make the units able to be conveyed out, the ownership only. So, and I did confirm that with the attorneys here this evening, if you have questions, but I did confirm with them today some assumptions that I've made and some notes that I've made in the draft findings. So I do just want to know, excuse me. On the first page is just an outline of the facts today, which would be, information about the property and the history of the meetings and what you've reviewed to date. Existing uses of the property and proposed. I've called out what aspects of the site are non-conforming. And there's a difference between non-conforming and legally non-conforming. So we've identified that there are multiple legally non-conforming aspects of this site. And I referenced out to a letter. In the finding that you've received, I noted 21903, which was from a prior CEO, which went through and listed all of the things on the property at that time. And I corrected that. I don't know if you saw that email yet, but it actually should be January 12th, 2004. I'd like to correct that. And everyone is familiar with that and has seen it. I just referenced it incorrectly. So I tried to outline, some of the nature of the existing and proposed status in regards to some of the nonconformity. I did note that Article 412 performance standards, I did not go down through those. The applicant did in the application materials, and the board has to make a finding that their statements do in fact meet or don't meet the requirements of the ordinance. And then I suggested some conditions, which include prior to release of the plan for recording, because this is a subdivision application, the plans do need to be recorded at the registry, and just ask for a couple of modifications and updates, and ask that the plan be an as-built of current conditions, because there was some development done around the cafe that wasn't reflected on the plan. So they would need to update that before recording and record all of the plans together, including the floor plans. So, and again, I did discuss this with the attorney today, who's been in touch with their property owner. So I believe that, all of these conditions, they're okay with if you all feel that there's something that you want to apply. Number 3, excuse me, I had a cough earlier. 3, I noted, I saw a discrepancy between 12 units and 11 units in the ordinance. And I believe the applicant is intended for that to say 12 units, not 11 units. So that was my suggested condition there. And very importantly is to strike references to units having a dedicated parking space. because this was one of the things we got caught on before was conveying out the parking spaces and then leaving the current uses without any parking. And ultimately, they said, no, we're just going to leave it as is. We're not going to convey it out. And there's conflict within the application where it's referenced as being conveyed out and not. But the intention is that it will not be conveyed out. That all of the infrastructure, the buildings, the uses, the parking will be as is today. The units will be conveyed out, but not the parking. So they'd all have that same shared parking. I just want to be really clear on that. So the application would need to be updated to make sure that that is as what it states and that it's consistent throughout. The utilities, the superintendent had indicated that they need to remain as one entity for billing purposes, so that restriction should be added to the condominium documents. I mentioned the as-built, adding the conditions of approval to the plan that's going to be recorded, and then having the deeds for each unit when they're conveyed out reference the recorded plan so that the owners will be apprised of what conditions the planning board placed. And then there's some standard conditions. This approval is limited to the proposal and plan contained in the application, supporting documents submitted by the applicant, and then variations from that required to come back to the planning board. That's a standard condition, and that's assumed in every application, but I've made a point to call it out here. Number 11, our subdivision ordinance actually says that the plan needs to be recorded within 30 days, but that's not consistent with state. So I'm making 2 points here. One is we need to change our subdivision ordinance when we're doing that. The state says you can't require it less than 90 days. So I am suggesting that that 30 be changed to 90. And that's because you can't leave it open-ended. If you approve a subdivision, you want to make sure it gets recorded and built out if there's infrastructure. And then additional conditions regarding submittal of the recorded plan, a full size to the town, a PDF of the recorded plan. And then the others are standard applications regarding appeal and violations. So I guess I'm going to boil it down a little bit. The applicant has indicated, in light of all the different discussions that we've had, they just want to have exactly what's there and be able to convey out the rental units as individually owned units, not change any use and not convey the parking. And attorneys here can confirm that, but I believe based on conversations that we've had that that is the case. And in that instance, I believe that the board could make a decision. And these are the conditions that I suggest if you decide to do that.
You all set, Don? You all set?
That's all I have for that one right now.
Did you have something to add?
Nothing to add. I just want to confirm that, correct, there was some confusion whether or not that within the motel structure, whether it's 12 or 11, it is 12. And I think that's you can see it on the plan because you'll see that you can count out the 12 units. And then there is a suggestion of units 1 and 2, I believe essentially being combined, being both the cafe and the marina. We're okay with that. If that's what right now we have it as 2 separate units, but if the board is so inclined for that to be 1, we're fine with that being a condition. And again, on one of the things was the existing conditions, correct? The entrance to the cafe was moved. So we'll update those plans to show where it's a doorway entrance, but it was moved from the side to the front, and we can provide that as well. And otherwise than that, I'm here to answer any questions you may have. I apologize, Zach Stewart couldn't be here tonight. He's at a varsity game representing his players, but I'm here to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I just want to observe that I did have a note in here regarding, it states the new submission includes updated condominium documents which show the marina and office are identified as units 1 and 2. So the planning board had a discussion and asked for them to be separated. And so my note was actually not a request or a suggestion that they be merged. It was just that I called it out in case the board had questions, because you had previously had some discussion around that. So the status is units 1 and 2. I'm not suggesting they need to be merged, but if you had questions about it, they are called out separately.
Either
Okay.
way.
At this juncture, I will entertain a motion for one of three things. We table this application, we approve this application, or we deny this application. So I'm open for a motion and a second, and then we'll have discussion, and then we'll take a vote
Ask a question.
after we make a motion.
Is our motion that the application is complete or is our
We've
motion?
already done that, right? The application's already been
Okay.
approved complete. So we're at the stage of either table, reject, or. So that's the motion I'll entertain, one of those three.
We can't have discussion first? You want a motion first?
I want a motion first.
Okay.
To start the discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second? We have a motion to approve and a second. Okay, Dwight, discussion?
These conditions that were outlined, do you guys have any heartburn with these?
No, not at all. Again, I do have a question about the suggestion relative to units 1 or 2. And so to the extent that the board has any questions about that, we can flesh that out.
so these-
Otherwise than that, I think, and then other than the clarification relative to its 12 units, we're fine with all the conditions.
You can memorialize that in some type of letter and then
Certainly, yeah.
resolve.
I think the existing conditions is going to result in a new survey, which will probably take however much time that the surveyor has to do. But now that we've clarified, and this is one of the discussions had with Dawn, whether or not we need to record within 30 days or 90 days. 90 days gives us a little longer, so we can have an updated survey with the existing conditions, which will clarify that as well.
All set, Dwight? Greg?
Yeah, I will, mention to the board again, my concern is that this is an existing non-conforming business and they're splitting it into 2 businesses and we're now only reviewing one of those 2 businesses. So I have concerns that the application is not complete and I have major concerns about us approving this because we don't have the other half of the non-conforming business in front of us.
What are the 2 you're talking?
The existing business is all combined. The marina, the restaurant, the hotel, the proposed condominiums, the entire area is part of their plan, is right now it's a single business. So they're proposing to break off part of that business and become condominiums, but yet we're not reviewing the other half of the business, which would be the marina, the parking for the marina. All of that is not included in the package.
Anything else, Greg?
Nope.
I guess my concern has been all along, reading this, maybe units 1 and 2, you're talking about the cafe and the units up above, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Where's the marina come in? Is that part of the?
The marina is part of the condominium association. It is very similar to a lot of condominium associations that you're seeing more and more. And I suspect in a month or so, you're going to be hearing about this. But a lot of condominium associations are, and we see this all the time in Portland, where there's a commercial element to the condominium association as well as a residential element. That is exactly what we're proposing here. And so we're tying the commercial element, similar to the building that our law office is in, we're tying the commercial element to units 1 and 2, whereas the remainder of the units are going to be residential. I think in past meetings, there's been some concern, well-lived, to how does that impact the residential elements? It doesn't. That commercial business has to have its own insurance, have its own protections relative to that. The condominium association can certainly regulate that, which it will, right? There's an association board, no different than the 29 unit building that our firm is in. Both the 2 floor units are commercial units. Everything above is residential, and so we're regulated by the condominium association. And so in this particular instance, Lakeside, the marina and the cafe operations are going to be regulated by the rest of the condominium association. no different than a lot of other condominium associations. They'll govern themselves. If there's a suggestion that the board would like to make in the governance documents in relation to that, we're willing to entertain that. But again, I think the concern is that whether or not like the residential units somehow will be impacted by the commercial operations, i.e. from a limited liability standpoint or something along those lines. That's not the case, because those units are separated and the operations are separated based on the easement that they control. The other option would be, instead of it having an easement, we could do what's called a limited common element and designate that to units 1 and 2. We could do it that way as well.
Is my concern, you said the marina operation would have their own insurance?
Yeah.
So if I come over and launch my boat, I slip and fall and hit my head on whose insurance covers that?
Well, I'm a lawyer, so I would ask, look at the site plan. Where are you when you slip and fall? If you're in unit 101, I would say it would be unit 101's insurance coverage.
I'm at the gas dock then.
Then it would be the marinas.
Liability around the boat launch and that whole operation is covered by the marina.
Correct. As you see on the plans, it's separated by that easement that runs with units 1 and 2.
Yep.
You said, Don? Questions? Betty, you're new here. A motion's been made. Second, I have discussion. Thank you. Don? Any questions?
No, I will just make one comment. I didn't suggest this, and I don't always do this, but if it made the board more comfortable, because I know there's still some question marks over people's heads, is I can have these documents reviewed by the town attorney, at the conclusion of this process, if that.
Let me ask you a question. As far as documents received, in the course of time, to the point Dawn was making, we were looking at some kind of verbiage within the condo associations, rules, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, relative to that liability, relative to the marina. The other point was made about pairing out the two so they were separate. And I think that's the point Greg was making. I mean, that's one of the actions to solve what Greg was talking about. Did any of that come forward in terms of that documentation?
Is it in
the condominium agreement or guidelines, anything about the marina?
So can I just clarify one
No,
thing?
I'm asking first.
Oh, okay.
I want to ask Dawn if she received any documentation. The reason I'm asking is we've kept asking for that for at least the last 2 meetings, maybe longer. And I'm asking Dawn if she got it. Go ahead, Dawn.
There are revised documents that were submitted with the package. I don't know that it actually calls out specifically what you're saying. I think that it's implied. But I can, like I said, I can call that out, ask the attorney to confirm that is covered.
I was looking at page 13 of I guess these are the association documents. 6.1.3. It says liability insurance required under the act shall also include all areas under supervision of the association, including commercial spaces owned by the association, even if leased to others. They got to be in the amount of $1 million, so on. Such policy shall also include coverage for any legal liability related to employment contracts to which the association is a party. That's where my question. Like, liability for the marina operations, other than if somebody gets hurt inside the 1 or 2, falls back on the association, but maybe I'll.
So go ahead.
So one, I'll just point out when you say including commercial spaces owned by the association, even if leased to others. So the commercial operations are not owned by the association. Units 1 and 2 will be owned by whoever owns it. In this particular case, it will be Mills Stewart Realty. So when you're looking at the liability insurance, we're talking about common elements, common areas. So the
Easements would be in there?
no, because the easement runs to the marina. And again, if you look at it, it runs to, in this particular case, Mills Stewart Realty. So like any other easement, right of way, whoever that's granted to, they're liable for that particular operation. Like, so for example, like a mineral easement, right? I own some piece of property, I lease it out to a commercial industry that's going to come in and do mineral extraction. I grant them a land use easement. They're now liable for their operations on that particular property, not the rest of the condominium. So when you're looking at that particular 6.13, that's talking about, again, like common elements, like so where like the grassy knoll with the picnic table and stuff like that, that's shared by all unit owners. The marina operations are not shared by the other unit owners, other than to the extent if they decide to rent a slip or something along those lines.
So the easement's running across the shoreline in front of the hotel, for instance. As I remember, those are easements for the marina to get to the docks. And then there was a large one going up from, would be the Augusta end of the hotel going up across diagonally, which was designated for white duck access. I don't know if you call that a right of way or an easement. That liability would go against white duck. Is that correct? I'm just using those examples, but
I think it's all running to Mills Stewart Realty, but yes, the liability run to Mills Stewart, the easement owner.
okay. Right. I think we're set here. Anybody in the audience have anything to ask, add, question? We're back to you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I understand we've got some non-compliance issues. Who's responsible for enforcement of?
Oh, you gotta just lean into the,
Who's responsible for enforcement on these non-compliance issues? Is it the planning board or CEO?
No.
Go ahead.
the code enforcement. So that has come up about parking and some other things that there were things ongoing. We weren't sure if that could be captured in this project and, approved moving forward. They are going to be separate because the applicant wants to, like I said, just what's there. So I'm working with the code enforcement officer, the applicant's aware, we've talked about it, and those issues are going to be addressed separately with the code enforcement officer. And I think Bill Monagle, actually from the Watershed District here, has been involved in that as well. So I do anticipate an application coming forward to address that.
So there's a good faith effort on their part to move this initiative forward.
I believe that to be the case.
Correct.
The other thing, in discussion about this project, you still have the 30% expansion possibility, which has to come back to the board. So if one of the condominium owners wants to expand, they would have to come back with a plan to the planning board to ask for that expansion, as an example, what you're talking about. That's where we'd be involved in the future. Okay, anybody from the audience? David, did you have a question, point? Okay, very good. Thank you. Keep us. Could you use a mic?
On the docking system, is it going to be one or two?
What are you asking, David?
I thought the condominium people would have their own.
No.
Even the ones that are forward of the motel itself?
Bill?
It's still non-conforming structures and buildings. Correct. They cannot change the, let's call it impervious cover, even though we've switched over to non-vegetated in the state statute. So if they have a 30% expansion, they must remove other impervious. So they could take out parking for say, which would both be impervious. So they'd be allowed to take out parking and expand a building 30%, but they can't expand it closer to the water or closer to a side boundary because that would be increasing the nonconformity. But impervious, as long as the impervious number that exists today stays the same, they would be allowed to, let's call it an exchange of parking to building. Okay. We had the discussion about a 30% expansion because we said, well, in the case of, say, the motel, there's going to be 12 units and one unit decides they want to build an expansion on. How does that affect? And essentially the answer that we got was that the condominium association would have to then approve that. And then they would come as, hopefully the condominium association approval would come to the board, not the individual property owner, just so there wasn't, one person shouldn't be allowed to use all of the 30% expansion of the entire facility. That was really kind of our point.
And I use that as an example for Dwight's question, which was talking about enforcement. It would come back to us if indeed someone wanted to expand. I want to use that example. Anybody else in the audience have a question, input? How about online?
Yeah, there are some comments. I'm going to read this. You probably can see it there as well. For the Motel Marina project, the board repeatedly stated the applicant was creating multiple businesses and changing uses, requiring multiple applications, not a single application, along with stricter parking scrutiny, as those uses would no longer qualify for grandfathered parking. If the current downtown mill condo project, it's not a condo project actually, that same logic does not appear to be applied. The proposal separates ownership into condos and introduces new district uses, yet it is not being held to the same application or parking standards. This raises concerns about inconsistent application of the rules. Food for thought from the public perspective.
Okay.
And then another comment is this board has been asking for half a year if 2 applications are needed. And then someone else observed that they couldn't really hear what was being said. So we do need to make sure we use the microphone in our microphones.
Okay. Any other input? Ready to take a vote?
Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
There are a few other things in the documents that would need to be cleaned up a little bit, like instead of impervious, it says pervious. Just a couple of omissions that I could work out with the applicant to make sure that they are in fact what is intended to be.
Eddie, do you have anything to say? Thank you. All right, motion on the floor is to approve this application. Been seconded. We've had discussion, input. No more. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
In touch. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to adopt the findings of fact?
White. Redo your motion, add the findings.
Conditions associated.
I hear a second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay,
4 in favor and 1 opposed.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is 149 Main Street. Carlton Apartments. Who's singing to us?
That was
Told even.
Going by.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Jeff
I
Allen.
would add that to the audience, we did have a menu that were there. We did have a site visit at 6. And here we are. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Jeff Allen from AE Hudson. I do want to thank you to the folks that had a chance to come out and see the site visit. I think that was very helpful, seeing the property and getting a better understanding of what Brandon has in plans for the unit. So what we have tonight is the application I submitted back 3 or 4 weeks ago to Dawn. She has gone through and I believe made some comments. We've had some discussions over the last 2 or 3 days with some of the other things that she's looking for. But what I would like to do this evening is go through the plan or go through the application, see if there are any issues that we need to address more on and kind of flesh that out a little bit. I'd like to have a good, clean list of items that I need to address. And also, we've asked for 8 waivers in the application, just due to the nature of the work. And so I would like to go through and perhaps we could approve those waivers this evening. And then ultimately, that maybe going through the waivers would answer a lot of the questions that would allow us to find the application complete. Here this evening also is Brandon Roberge, who's the developer. And I think we had a chance to talk some with Mr. Green, who's the owner of the building now, when we were at the planning board or the site walkthrough. So I guess, would you like me to go through kind of a overall? I'm sorry?
Go ahead. What you
Okay.
feel like sharing with us.
So 149 Main Street is the Winthrop Commerce Center. And what we're proposing to do is take several floors on the building that's parallel to Main Street and the one that's perpendicular to Main Street right next to it, and develop 56 residential apartments. These will be a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and a couple 2-bedroom apartments. As part of that, in the application, I mentioned this is on map 31 lot 203. As a result of some of the discussions that Don and I have had recently about density, we'll get into that a little bit later, but we probably will add some additional lots to this because we need more, just due to the standards of what lot density can be. We need more land to offset the density or the number of units that we're proposing. So we'll get into that later. We have a deed that's attached in the application. We have a letter back from the Winthrop Utilities District that they have capacity to serve us with water and sewer. We'll be doing that, but they want us to examine the plumbing because we've got to redo the plumbing in the building to hook up to all of these separate units. All of the work, and I want to stress, all of the work that we're proposing to do is interior to the buildings. We may have a couple new signs or something outside, but in essence, all of the work is in the buildings. So that kind of gives us reason to request the waivers that we have. So in your application, there's a checklist of required submissions. And so maybe do you want to go down through those at this time? Whatever the pleasure of the board is. Okay. The first one is the final subdivision plan, and we have submitted that. Essentially, the subdivision plan is the floor plan for the buildings. And those are attached in Exhibit B to the application. The next required submission is a successful soil test. And you read through that narrative that describes what that's for, is if we're not being connected to the public sewer system, which we are. So that would be, there's no sense to do a soil test because we don't need to have a septic system. So we're requesting a waiver on that. Would you like to vote on these individually or just collectively at the end as far as accepting the waivers?
Why don't you go through all of them?
Okay, very good. The next one is the erosion and sediment control plan. Again, we're requesting a waiver here because we're not doing any site work. The next one is stormwater management. Again, we're not doing any site work, so we would like a waiver to that standard. We're not disturbing anything outside. Also, is similar to that is the phosphorus control plan. No soil disturbance. That should not be an issue. The next one would be waiver number 5 is for a nitrate concentration study. Again, we're connected to public sewer, public water. So we're not drawing water from the ground. We're not discharging wastewater to the ground. And the nitrate concentrations are generally associated with that. I'm going to skip traffic study, solid waste, and a couple of the next required submissions. Waiver number 6 is for a letter from the town engineer because we don't have any, we're not creating any municipal roads. The roads are there, we're going to use them. So we shouldn't need a letter from the town engineer about the roads that we plan to design because we're not designing any. The next one is evidence of road ownership and road maintenance. I'd like to request a waiver for that because we're not proposing any municipal roads. I was looking at a survey map a little more closely this evening with Mr. Green, and Mechanics Row and that road between, I think it's called Commerce Place, Commerce Drive, that's kind of parallel to Mechanics Road, is actually owned by the property. So that's not a municipal road as far as I understand, going down to the parking lots down back. Between, just to the east or just to the west of the Commerce Center building, that's a private road. And the last
Excuse me,
waiver
From the street in, those are all privately owned.
I'm not sure
From the main
about,
street,
I'm not sure about Clark Street, but I believe Clark Street is public, which is on the east side of the property. Mechanics Row or Commerce Place or something. I think I saw a street sign there.
main driveway you're
The
talking.
main driveway is privately owned
Private.
by Mr.
The one
Green.
parallel with that toward us is town, is what you're saying.
Right.
Thank you.
And finally, the last one is for performance guarantee for any work we would do to improve the public property. We're not proposing to do any, so we need a waiver. So that's all, those 8 waivers are the first thing that I wanted to.
Let's look at it the other way. The number's shorter on going the other way, right? So Don, help us with which ones you see as being required.
I apologize because I've been looking through this whole time and I'm not sure, where are the waiver requests? I see the
It's-
criteria.
There's a page that says checklist of required submissions.
Page is it?
It's about that thick. So,
It's one page. This is all on one
there's
page.
no numbers on it. So
Yeah.
Is at the top there, checklist.
Checklist of required submissions. So the items that I'm referring to are numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12, and 13.
Okay, so you mentioned number 1, but that you don't need a waiver for?
No, because that's included in this application.
Okay, so you're counting that as your subdivision plan and that's, we're
Yes.
good with that, okay.
Yep.
Meeting.
What I was
Okay.
trying to get to with Dawn was, what are the things she's going to require from you? So we all understand what you're providing. And I just thought it was a shorter list going the other way of what was required. So Dawn, if you confirm, can you confirm the numbers he's talking about that is required? And see if he agrees.
The only thing is, it depends on the outcome of the discussion, right? Like they're reasonable requests. If there is any improvements that comes as a result of discussions, the performance guarantee or some other tool might be relevant, but in terms of being complete, I think that granting a waiver and then having that be part of the discussion moving forward, in my professional opinion, would be adequate. We don't have a town engineer. The public works director has weighed in on this, so I think that that's satisfied. Nitrate concentration, that's fine. Excuse me. Stormwater management, there is no improvements being proposed. I don't know if there are opportunities to improve what is there. And actually, Bill Monagle is here. I don't know if he's going to speak to that at all. Generally, I think that it depends on if there's going to be any physical improvements associated with it, if there's going to be any site improvements as a result of discussions. Otherwise, I think that they're fine.
Okay, good. Me, before it comes to us, you got to review it, say, I've got everything I need. So you two need to agree on what that is.
Right. We actually have a meeting scheduled next week, and we're going to,
So between the two of you, what I would ask you to solve that, so you have a common understanding and you're providing that. Okay, that makes sense? Agreeable?
Yes, wasn't sure who you were looking at. Yes.
I'm looking at both of you.
So I feel comfortable with that. Do you feel comfortable in terms of direction? Like when we talk about things, do you feel where?
Okay, so the remaining items, let me go through the remaining items to see if we need to supply any more information. The other ones, as I mentioned, the first one was the final subdivision plan, and we've included a floor plan that's in there. Because we are not doing any, or not planning to do any sort of site disturbance, the only subdivision plan will be the units within the building. So those are all mapped out, so we know that unit 12 is, 618 square feet or whatever, the square footage of each unit, and the dimensions are listed or shown on the plans. The next one was a traffic study, which is, it's a very simple study. We've got one use type that we're adding to this here. So we've got 56 residential units, and there's discussion in the earlier part of the application that using the land use code based on the Institute of Traffic Engineers, there's so much traffic per peak hour. And for these multifamily housing units, low rise, it generates 0.51 trips per PM peak hour. That's when you'd have the most of the traffic, people coming home from work, going to work, going out for the evening or something would be typically in the evening. And so 0.51 times 29 trips or 20.
Excuse me, you're getting into the weeds. All I want you to do is work with Dawn to make sure you satisfy those elements that need to be required.
Okay.
That's all I want.
Yep. So we'll skip to the next one is solid waste. So we've addressed that. We're going to continue to use solid waste.
Stop. I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
You and Dawn get together and figure out which ones you need to submit in, because she will not bring it to us until those are met. Okay?
Well, I'm thinking they're met.
And I understand that, but you two need to agree or it's not going to come to us.
Okay.
Okay? So save your detail. I appreciate it.
Okay.
But you two need to agree on what that information is that you need to bring forward for your application, if you want to have a timely approval for your application.
Okay.
I believe we can do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Should we at least, Rick, should we agree if we're going to move forward with the waivers though? Well, I've got his list, and I mean, the list was,
Got to submit?
well, these are the things that I said that he wanted a waiver for. So he basically says, because they're not changing it, they don't have to make any changes. And I said, but as a planning board member, I didn't agree with the list. There's a couple of them I'd like to see brought up and discussed.
And tell him what we expect.
So the subdivision I thought is reasonable. The soil test is reasonable, again, for a waiver. From my perspective, I think those two are fine to be waivered. The erosion sediment control, I said would be mixed in with stormwater. So I think stormwater management, erosion sediment control, and phosphorus should all be brought back up. This building was built a long time ago. They don't meet any current runoff standards. A lot of the water drains off directly into the stream. So I think it'd be worth us at least evaluating the site and saying, can we do, it's going to be non-conforming. It won't meet today's standards, but is there small things we can do to improve the site? Maybe even putting some curbs, a settling pond, something like that to keep the water from going in directly into the stream. So just some thoughts. Nitrate study, I agree, is not needed. The town engineer, again, no roads, road ownership and performance guarantee. I think all of those, I think waivers would be reasonable for us to grant. So I think the cluster of erosion, stormwater management, and phosphorus probably should come back. And I've got comments on traffic study, solid waste disposal. I've got some comments on those if you want to bring them up now, or if you want to let Dawn come and they want to come to a plan first.
I'd like to have you do that when it's your turn.
That's fine. Okay.
And if you would, please, as well you do, document that and
That's fine. Yep. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Yeah. Would it be possible to get some of those inputs before Dawn and I meet on Wednesday? It could, if you could provide just a brief.
Greg will
narrative of
provide
the
those to
thought.
Dawn
Yeah.
Yeah,
in a timely fashion, so you can have that.
that would be excellent if you could.
Thank you, Greg.
I will, can I give a little rebuttal?
I'm sorry.
Can I give a little rebuttal?
You can, but I'm trying to share with you that when the board reviews it, you have to satisfy the board members for us to move on.
Right.
So, however you want to do that. You want to rebut, go ahead.
Well, my thoughts about if we did some work on the site, I can certainly see the need for erosion, stormwater, and phosphorus. Where we're not, because we're not changing the site, and as you mentioned yourself, the site is old. It's been here since, I found a quote from the Portland Press Herald. This was built in 1882. Whatever is going on with the site has certainly stabilized.
Right, but I
It
mean,
predates any sort of regulation.
I agree,
concerning
except the
stormwater.
use has been minimal by comparison. You know, the lots to the east and definitely on the east side of Clark Street have not been utilized. You know, hence the trees growing,
Yeah,
it's like, that hasn't been utilized. There's going to be a lot more salt and sand added. There's going to be a lot more use. So, and it wasn't even entirely plowed. You couldn't even go through the entrance between the management building and to Clark Street during the winter time. Most of the time that back lot wasn't plowed. The snow was piled there.
Yeah.
So now that's going to obviously have to be open to have flow of traffic. So the use is going to change. So again, as the board, it's sort of something that we would like to discuss. I would hate to deny a project because there's no way you could conform with today's standards. But I would at least try to say, is there something we can do to help protect the water body, to help protect the runoff? So are there small things that we can do that are going to be improving the site, and the use is going to change? So I could argue either way, whether it's like, yeah, you're not doing site work, but the site use is going to dramatically change because you're going to add a lot more use to that parking than has been historic or used in the last few decades.
Oh,
We can discuss this more in the future. I think is probably the better venue. We weren't going to use the parking lots on the east side of Green Street.
And just,
So, yeah,
again, it's
but
just,
this is a discussion we can have. in the future.
it's just something to kind of address is
Yeah.
that, the use is going to change. So is it something we want to discuss? So I don't want to give it a blanket waiver. I'm not saying you're going to be required to do anything. I'm not saying that's what's going to be the purview of the board. I just don't think that one in particular should be able to be moved into the waiver category. That's my only comment at this time.
Yep, that's fine. And if we need to do something, Bill and I have worked together on enough projects that we can fight it out.
would you continue your presentation?
So the rest of the application that I've submitted are just the items. We needed a copy of the deed, which is the purchase and sale agreement, or that's We've got the purchase and sale agreement, and we've also got the deed. Let me get to the first page. For when Winthrop Commerce Center bought the property in 2002. So those are both included in that Exhibit A. Exhibit B are the subdivision plans we've alluded to earlier. We needed a flood map, which is an Exhibit C. And this is just a format that we created based on the flood panels for this area. We're not in the floodplain, bottom line.
You all set?
We also needed financial capacity, and Brandon has a letter from Main Street Capital, who's going to be helping to fund this project, as well as the new LLC that he has set up called Carlton Apartments LLC. I'm sorry. So that's all we have that's included in the application. If there are additional things that we need to include following this meeting with Don, I'd be happy to add those in there.
Wait.
Did you want any of my updates now, or do you want me to just send them to Don? On some of the applications. Said I just had a couple quick ones. I'll give you the quick summary is the traffic, specifically Clark Street and the east side parking lots. Both of those entrance/exits are only really going to be able to handle one car. Clark Street may be a town street, and that's something that we have to address with the town because that cannot handle two-way traffic. It is just way too narrow. Not even in the winter, just right now, you can't pass somebody on that road. And there's physical barriers being like an old gate and like a retaining wall that would have to be addressed to truly access. And the gap between the two buildings, which would be potentially an entrance it's again on the east side. The two buildings owned by the property is too narrow, and it's a fairly long corridor with limited visibility. So it really could only be one way. That really can't be two-way either.
Right.
So
To be clear, are you talking the driveway between the big building and the little
the little
office
building,
beside it?
yes.
Yeah, I don't
Yep.
believe we're intending to use that. We would use Clark Street.
Right. And if you're going to use Clark Street, again, it's only one way. I mean, it really, even though it's a town street, it is incredibly narrow and there's physical barriers. So that would be something we have to address with the town because that has to be a completely non-conforming road for the town. And I don't know how they're going to plow or deal with it because it's very, very, very narrow.
Yeah. We may be able to do some sort of partnership between the town. Yeah, but we'll look at Clark Street.
Yeah. And I mean, for solid waste disposal, you're going to have 55, 56 units. I think we would want to know where your dumpster is going to be. See some kind of a mock-up of what they're going to be covered with, fence/awning or whatever it is. Just, we would want to know the location. It's going to be quite a bit of solid waste being generated. Is it going to be, they have trash chutes and it's trash in the basement? Is it going to be outside dumpsters? Whatever plan you come up with, I think that would be something that we really would want to see.
Okay.
So just to make sure,
Yeah.
to be clear, what we would want to see. And I mean, again, I touched on kind of the phosphorus stormwater kind of situation that would be worth discussing. There are a lot of, let's call them historic buildings on site that have significant decay. So that's also a discussion point. And I think my only last thing that I brought up when we had your pre-discussion was, I think an inspection of the chimney, just certifying that it's safe would be something that, because it does have its own potential risk, just having somebody certify that it's stable and safe, I think it'd be something that we would like to request.
Yeah. I did speak with Mr. Green about that, and he did have somebody look at this, but it's been a few years ago. And I know now they've got this little cone on the top to keep the rainwater out of the inside of it. So that should help stabilize it some, but we can find out what that status is and if we can get some sort of report, perhaps.
That's.
I can't promise we'll do that because again, that's sort of outside
Yep.
of our purview, but.
Right. Yep.
I work like
The,
Right. Right. I'm out that parking lot all the time and I see bricks out there, pieces of brick. And it's deterioration over time, right? Brick we live in Maine and you give it a crack, it's going to open up. So I think it's one of those things because it's such a large structure, public safety is I think really the only real concern. So having somebody and maybe some kind of schedule for review, be it every 10 or 20 years or whatever would be recommended. That would be all we'd want to be like, it's good now, we'll check it again in X. And, again, just because it poses probably what I'd call a substantial public safety question versus, something that was a lot smaller that could literally cut the building in half if it fell. So, you'd be talking a pretty bad incident if it actually did collapse. So, yeah, that would be bad. But no, that's a good.
I would echo too, my main concern is the chimney. And the owner did indicate that work was done, he said 8 to 10 years ago, but Bill, you may be closer. And you said the mason was still alive and well. And the first place I'd start is to get their input on condition then and what they think the condition is now and what maintenance is required with it. And we're not looking for full-fledged engineering study. We're looking for some feedback on condition and allay our fears about that concern because this is a significant project. And any of our comments, at least my comments, are not negative. They're contributing to the process. So if we can nail that one, we can move on from the chimney.
Yeah, one thing we did discover today is that side where the chimney is where we're proposing to use for parking.
Case in point.
All of my parking was, on the other side of the building. There may still be some use over there, but given the amount of parking that we need, the lots on the east side of the building are more than adequate. I think we have 39 spaces and we need 38 or something like that.
Well, if there were issues with that chimney, it also would have an issue with the building as far as safety.
Right.
Betty?
So, sorry. I think that in order to proceed with putting people in the building, be some kind of higher department inspection of that.
Right, the
So, like,
plans, I believe,
As long as they do that, I don't think we would have to worry. But I mean, certainly to get an occupancy permit, I would think you would have to prove
yeah,
it to
the
be
building
safe.
is going to be sprinkled. And I believe we have to have fire marshal permits as well. So the state fire marshal will be looking at this. That should, and they will review the plans and, that will be addressed.
Thank you.
Ron?
I think I was concerned about the traffic, I think. Covered.
You're all set?
I just wanted to know who owns that?
I believe it's part of the property, so I would assume Mr. Green or the Winthrop Community or Winthrop Commerce Center LLC owns that.
You. Nothing.
Yeah.
So loud. What was I saying? Oh, the lot on the side, I thought Greg brought up a good point for that lot specifically, just looking at it, just for some protection for the stream.
Okay, right,
Simple measures. And then as for the building, I don't really see how the use is going to affect what's already there. But I can see that lot, and that's the only really.
yeah. One of the lots, right now, there's currently a motorhome RV parked there. That's one of the lots. And we're not proposing to move the beautiful motorhome. We just, so that area is already revegetated. So that isn't a drainage improvement, right, Bill?
I mean,
Don?
I just want to make an observation. People are asking us to make sure we use the microphone when people are in the audience. And I missed that
It's you, Bill.
meeting. So I just want to make sure that we're addressing any questions that they have.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have questions, addition? Don, use the mic. Please.
I was looking through here and I didn't see any assignment of where the parking was going to be. And I thought with 56 apartments, you're going to be increasing parking. And I know that that's always been an issue in the back for the medical center because they've had to expand.
Needs to be in the plan.
But good, that's a good point, Greg, about that is a one-way Clark Street. You only one car going through there. And between the two parking lots, actually not between the two, just north of the small one is our back entrance off of Clark Street to our parking lot. And then it enters out onto Main Street by where Mike Levy's office was, between the police station and those offices. And what I could see being a problem, and I've only been a renter for 34 years, but we have absentee landlords, so who don't know what the situation is here, and they're new owners for the last 4 years. But I can envision it's hard to pull out of Clark Street, especially in the morning or any time or evening, because of the traffic. It's blind at that turn. You try to look down past parks, people coming around the corner fast. If you get 3 or 4 cars backed up on Clark, what are people going to want to do? They're going to turn into our parking lot and go up to the entrance of our parking lot. And in the morning, if there's people coming out of Clark Street and people want to go on to Clark Street, they're going to come through our parking lot and drive around down onto Clark Street behind our office. And I can see that being a real serious annoyance for the tenants, Two Trees Forestry and us, to the point where I'd probably try to consider to get our landlord to close that off. But the only thing is that that's how big trucks, whether it's a UPS or something, they come in one way and they go out the other way. But our property that we rent is going to be, I think, pretty heavily impacted by that. I mean, I can see that. My office is in the back southeast corner of that building. So I'm looking at the main parking lot, and the traffic comes right underneath my office, under my desk almost, off of Clark Street. And that would be a real nuisance, I'll tell you. But I have a hard time believing that you're going to be able to get 39 or 40 parking places over in these two little lots.
I can show you.
No, that's all right. No, I'm gonna wait until you show me. I mean, later when stormwater or phosphorus becomes an issue. And the parking lot that's right by the building, between Clark Street and the building in the mill stream. Just to be aware, I know they're probably not going to be going across the footbridge, but that footbridge is closed off in the wintertime. They gate that off for safety purposes. They don't want people slipping or going over the railings there into the stream. So whoever is going to be, they're going to have to be walking around the side to the front of the building there. So
But, I mean, if everything's enclosed in the building and not creating any more imperviousness, we don't have an issue with the stormwater on it. So, again, I was looking through this and there was nothing that said this is going to be apartment parking anywhere on here. So I didn't, and there was no mention of parking in the narrative at all that I could find. So I was just curious about that. But, Greg, your comment about Clark being one-way street, and then that these are going to be the parking spaces for much of the many of the apartments. Yeah, that could raise an issue for us, and I'll probably have to bring that to the attention of our landlord too. So, and maybe the law offices and Two Trees Forestry.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else? Anyone else? Anybody online?
There.
Come on up, Ed. Okay.
Don't see anyone raising their hand in the public.
Okay. We have a gentleman over here with the mic. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Mark Gordon. I didn't catch whether or not the proposal was for low-income housing or was it just apartments?
Sure, it's just going to be general apartments. It's not particularly directed at any age or any income status. So it'll be just general apartments.
And if I recall, it was 1 to 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom units?
Studios, ones and twos.
Okay. So just not to belabor a lot of the what ifs that you're already bringing up, but I'm a grandfather of 3 here in Winthrop. I see some planning board members here that are parents as well as grandparents as well. We're already dealing with oversized classrooms. I'm not sure how this is going to impact bringing in, 56 units. How many of those are going to be occupied by kids? And how is that going to impact? So I see other impacts as well as what's listed already that I'd like the planning board just to take in consideration. I know there's a town councilor that's here that I listened to the council meeting the other night, and one of the subjects was the abundance of kids in each classroom is already an issue. So how does this impact that going forward as well? So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh,
Ed. Come on up, Ed.
Good evening. I had one comment come to mind on the waiver request. Actually, I think Greg ended up pretty well covering it because although the applicant saying we're not really changing anything outside, well, yes, you are. You're going to bring in 50 cars or something on that order that aren't there today and haven't been there for a number of years. That definitely is going to affect runoff from, like I say, just from plowing the parking lot to oil and materials dripping off the car, sand and salt, and et cetera. So certainly think that waiver for the stormwater runoff definitely is something that should not be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I think you have, Mr. Petty.
Yes. I'd like to ask, is there any handicap of it, facility in the building? Is there any one apartment for people?
Yeah.
Any way to get in or out?
That's a Brandon question. This is the owner, Brandon Roberge.
Yeah, so there is, the ability to access by wheelchair. And I believe there are, if I'm not mistaken, might be some ADA apartments in there as well. I'm not sure on the number exactly. Ben would know, but there are, we're being compliant with, there's a certain amount of ADA units required.
Right.
Perhaps you could provide that to us the next time with your application.
Yeah, it's on the blueprint, but I can get the count for you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Betty. Jamie.
I just wanted to address what you asked, Mark, was, that was a question I had too. And I think when I counted last time, if it hasn't changed, is it 3 2-bedroom apartments? And then the rest are one bedroom, which was very good to hear because you figure most one bedroom apartments wouldn't typically have a child in it, would think. So that was something that was
Yeah.
good to hear.
Okay, hearing no more questions or input, then I'll conclude that portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have additional feedback and?
Well, I could answer a couple of those questions. There's a lot of, because there are medical facilities in the building, there's quite a bit of ADA parking around the building. So there's got to be suitable access. And then once you're in the building, you can use elevators to go up to the floor. So I believe ADA access is certain. But
Well, I think you're also concerned about
Yeah.
the actual.
No, I know what you're saying, yet there is, the way they have made it, you can get around.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Need to keep it that way.
Yes.
All right, we're moving on to Boot Cove Lane. Hi, Ryan.
How we doing today, guys?
Good.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to us.
Okay.
So, my client, Mark Freebaum, I met him about a couple years ago. Great guy, came up here for an event, fell in love with the area. Ended up staying at the local campground, became friends with people over there, ended up purchasing a lot. Thought it was a great purchase for him, investment. And about last September, I dropped off to me, the best packet I ever put in for a planning board. And lo and behold, a day later, Don told me not so much. So it came to our attention that, we've done a lot of these shoreline zoning projects and a lot of spots. In this instance, we see lots like this with 20% slope and then the rest of the area, general slope with dual zoning. Come to find out this was strictly resource protected. And Dawn said, no go. So in the last 6 months, we've been doing some research, working with my colleague, Nate Whalen, a water resource specialist, reaching out to colleagues at DEP and, going through records and notes of ours. And, we would want to see if there's a way to move forward so our client can build on this lot. Seems like if you go down Boot Cove, every other lot on that is developed, some within 150 feet, some within at 250 feet, but there's the precedence all over the place. So, we came before you guys. We're not really sure. Well, I guess I gotta say the day I was putting this packet together, Nate went over to talk to Bill at Cobussy Watershed District and kind of got another idea of what was going on. So we wanted to, to talk to you guys in good faith, talk to the Watershed District and see if we can work for it, if there's a way to make this happen.
Okay. You all set, Ryan?
Yeah.
Questions? Dwight?
On right now.
I was just, in looking at this, part of the proposal was to request a change to zoning. And this board is in the past, and I strongly support not spot zoning, so not changing the zoning. We've discussed it twice in the last 6 months. Lower Narrows really is in resource protection. It's really questionable whether it should be. So the entire water body, because the water utility is actually using upper Narrows, not lower Narrows. So I know they're hydraulically connected through that bridge, and with wind, it's possible you could have some back and forth, but for the most part, we don't know if they were ultra conservative or why the utility district. So we pose that question. We have a number of tasks on our plate right now. Some are time sensitive, so we haven't quite gotten back to that issue. But one of the issues is, number one is, should that even be resource protection? And that would address your problem. But, the second thing would be, well, there is enough space on that property to build the house in the 250-foot setback. It would be kind of tucked into the corner, unfortunately, but you have enough setbacks. I did the measurements yesterday and said it would definitely fit even with the existing footprint with the side setback and road setback. So I felt like that's not, by the resource protection, the goal is trying to protect the resource. That's why we've had the setback and said 250. And there are other towns in Maine, you probably have run into them, that use and say, we're using the full 250 on shoreline zoning, period. Nobody can build there at all. The state allows us to go into 100 feet. We've done that most of Winthrop in the shoreline zone, but we haven't done that in resource protection. Again, the question that just so you're aware, we've brought up several times on the board is, should Lower Narrows even be resource protection? Because I think our general opinion was that it wasn't, but we need an answer from the utility district, from them first, because they're the ones that sort of defined it, not us. So if they were okay with it, we could move forward with a motion to remove it. So just giving you some background on internal discussions here in the town, that there is a move to try to change that. But as far as spot zoning and changing the zoning, that's not something I know, and me as a board member would support. And especially in a case where the lot is conducive to building a structure, it's not entirely within that 250-foot setback. So just giving you some background.
There's a CMP easement right away that kind of splits the lot kind of awkwardly right down the center too. That's kind of one of the issues that we're dealing with. That's kind of, I guess that's encouraging. So how do we move forward to that? We got to talk to the utility district.
That's the hope, is that was,
Yeah.
I mean, that's on Dawn's plate. I think we might have even sent them an email. You want to speak to that, Bill?
Bill, take the mic.
Mike?
Folks online can't hear you.
The lot is not in resource protection because it's on abutting a public water supply. It's in resource protection because there's over 2 acres of contiguous area of over 20% slopes. Everything around Lower Narrows and Upper Narrows is in the public water supply zone.
Right.
But not all of it is resource protection. This area is resource protection along the East Cove shore because of the steep slopes. And I could say a little bit now, but I like to go look at time series on Google Earth, and I've got like 2013, 16, and 2024 here. And there was 2013, there was only one house on that side of Boot Cove Lane. 2016, there were 2, and in 2024, another one showed up, and that one is about 150 to 170 feet from the water. And it's in resource protection. The other 2 are probably 250 to 300.
Right. We just changed that in our ordinance.
I know you did.
For resource protection.
Yeah.
So,
but I think the lot that is less than 250, and we could talk all night. We're not going to talk all night about it, but I have some questions about when things were deeded, parts of lots. But there's one lot in there that's only 250 feet deep from the water and 300 feet wide. That's lot, I think, 2A. And that lot has the house that's only 170 feet from the water. And my understanding is if you have a lot in resource protection and there's no place else on the lot, and it's a lot of record, and there's no other place on the lot that you can build in resource protection within the 250. But if you have a land outside of 250, outside of the resource, you have to build your house there. But it looks like something happened. There was some transfer of property from, I think, that lot in 2024 that part of the lot could have been built on, and that was on the other side of Boot Cove Lane. And it seems like it was, or right around there, it was sold to another owner. But so I don't know. I tried to call Mark today. I wanted to find out when the building permits were issued, because the house that shows up in 2024 was not there in 2016. So between 2016 and 24, it was built in resource protection, 150 to 170 feet from the water.
And we would have allowed that in 2024. We changed the ordinance in 2026.
I know, Greg. I've been around this with DEP and everything. Actually, since 2006, it was supposed to have been 250 feet for structures.
It wasn't changed in our ordinance, though.
Right. I've been on the committees with Andy and that. So I know.
It was really a correction that we should have made back in 2006, but we
the
did.
point I'm getting is the house that is less than 250 may have still been able to have been built less than 250 because the lot only had 250 feet of.
The entire lot is within the resource
All of it
protection.
was in
Yeah.
resource.
Yep.
So I don't know, and I'm trying to, maybe it's not my job or my business to find out, but I'm curious about the stuff, so.
No, we did. Yeah. I mean, in this lot though, in this case for this particular applicant, we think there is space to build outside of resource protection. And that's why we were kind of recommending that.
Let me finish up here, please.
I agree.
Lean in.
I agree that there does seem to be room behind the utilities easement. I think I would say that would be a good first look to do.
So I am researching some questions that have arisen as a result of this application. It sounds like some stuff that Bill's looking into, but one of the things about this lot is that it was created in 2025, 2024, 2025.
Can't hear you.
Sorry. And so you can get a special exception to build in the resource protection district, but not if the lot was created. I can't recall the date, but 24 and 25 do not make it eligible for that. It would have to be completely outside of the resource protection. But the other questions I'm looking for answers.
So I appreciate all your commentary about stormwater and all these other projects. That's one of the reasons why I was brought into this project is because I do this type of work down on Sebago Lake. It's a drinking water supply for Southern Maine. And so that's basically what I'm here to do is make sure that all the phosphorus, all the stormwater is not impacting the lake. DEP regulations require steep slopes to be resource protection zone. And that's one of the things that we agree with. But when a lot flattens out, there's ways with low impact development and stormwater controls to let that area be developed without impacting the lake. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do here but he's a little bit stuck in that his whole lot is zoned resource protection, even though the steep slope only applies to the first 100 feet of it. So that's what we're trying to work through. The topographic maps don't do a great job of outlining the topography of the land. It looks like from the utility district back to the corner, there's room there. But those slopes are actually steeper on that side than they are on the west side of the utility district. So I'm wondering if we could do a site visit or somehow go out there and take a look at it. The owner is willing to do anything that is required to address the stormwater. He's willing to address the stormwater in the road. A lot of this is going to take road improvements, culvert improvements, getting this water into forested low wetlands, natural areas for treatment. So that's the goal here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
White?
Nate Whalen. I'm resident of West Gardner. I live on Cobbessy Lake. I'm a water resource specialist for Portland Water District on Sebago Lake.
Any other input in the audience? Online?
Nothing online.
Anyone else? David?
David Lee. Greg, the information I got for the agenda for today's meeting had a lot of information that you may not have caught up with in terms of them proposing that instead of 250 on RP, that it be redesignated only 100 feet. And then allowing the balance, and that in effect would allow them to do what heretofore was possible before that correction was made, to go the full depth. You're saying, however, it may be possible that turns into just shoreland despite the slope?
No, the sloped area would stay in resource protection. It would be the area, and again, topography's enhanced quite a bit with the recent LiDAR flights in 2014 and 2017. So now there's actually existing topography data to actually be able to define the slopes. Should we redefine the resource protection for Winthrop? I mean, that's again a topic we've kind of discussed, whether it's in drinking water, whether it's in resource protection. Should we address that issue? And I think as a board, we said, yes, how easy is that? How hard is that? How do we go and look at that? Because the slope near the shore is steep is not necessarily a reason to say that that applies for the whole, what is it, 500 or 1,000 feet here for resource protection.
How about depth, though? Are you thinking of modified depth as well?
Depth of what?
From the water body, instead of it always being 250, being less than 250?
Yeah, it could be less than 250 if the slope was such that it didn't put it in resource protection. I don't think you want to end up with slices that go, oh, this is over 20, this is over 20, this is less than 20, this is over 20. The state has some protocols for how you would go overall in slope, how you would do those calculations, and should we go, but right now you can see there's just a massive line drawn, like a crayon drawn kind of around the pond because the slopes, were steep and they didn't calculate it everywhere. So I'm not suggesting we calculate it and go and put little dots here and there and say, oh, you can build here, you can't build here, you can build here, you can't build here, because that causes other problems. But there is ways to redefine the resource protection area. And especially now with the enhanced topography that you actually have that's accurate. So you can redefine those slopes if you wanted to.
Okay, my understanding was a little different. I thought these guys were hoping they could get a modified RP that would only extend over the course of the ground that had the steep slope as opposed to having to go the full 250.
I think that was their request. And I said, for me, that would be spot zoning that we're not going to do. So that's my vote on the planning board. I wouldn't put that forward to do a spot zone and change just that one little sliver of land. Again, I think resource protection should be reviewed on a larger scale and the maps redeveloped, not spot zoned.
In the board's spare time?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, sir.
Isn't resource protection already spot zoned in itself? The entire lake is not resource protection. It's just the
right. It's just the steep slope. Yeah, it's just the steep slopes.
We have very isolated areas on that lake.
Yeah. Though. But the question is there better data and a better process? I think it was a blanket. If there was a steep slope in that area, we're going to make it 1,000 feet. I think that was their methodology in the 80s when they did this. And I don't think we've changed it. I know when Don and Rick did the work to re-update our zoning maps, if you look, that line is very, very even from the shoreline.
I don't want to confuse 1,000 feet being the public water supply.
Sorry, 500 feet is resource protection. Yeah.
Resource protection.
Right. If 500 feet is the resource protection, but then it's 250 is what the setback is for building.
So another thing to add is that when you have steep slopes, you still don't want stormwater going down those slopes.
Correct.
You still want it to go in the steep slope doesn't provide much treatment for stormwater. So you still need different low impact development controls. And so you don't want the stormwater going down that slope.
Bill?
Yeah, well, actually,
Bill?
I might be wrong, but I think.
Microphone, Bill?
I
Microphone?
think the whole zone of resource protection is still also like shoreland 250.
The shoreland's going to apply no matter what. You can't change
Well, this
that.
would go to public water supply outside of the resource protection here. Then you're in public water supply for another 750 feet. But what I'd like to point out is, we're talking about the 100 feet of steep slope. When you're dealing with shoreland zone, let's put RP resource aside. Shoreland zone could be 2%, 5% slope, gradual. You still can't build within 100 feet because that 100 feet, the value of that 100 feet, the number one purpose of the setback is not for visual buffers or for wildlife even. It's for stormwater treatment. So any runoff from your lawn or your driveway is going through a forested buffer, a wooded buffer, and it is in the vegetation takes up the phosphorus by its roots and keeps it from going into the lake. DEP does not recognize any treatment of phosphorus on any slopes greater than 15%, okay? Less than 20%. When I do stormwater reviews for subdivisions, commercial operations, the treatment factors for buffers are in usually two categories, 0 to 8% slope, 9 to 15. You get zero treatment after 15. Jeff Dennis at DEP will say 20% slope gives you no treatment. I know that these, the contours that are on the construction erosion control plant were submitted here, and I spoke with Nate today, Nate Whalen today. These were not surveyed on site. This may have been interpolated from USGS topo maps, is my guess. And you'd have to go out and look at it on a site-by-site basis, but they can't be that far off. But within the 100 feet to the structure here, the slope, the elevation, there's a 100-foot setback. It goes up 40 feet within 100 feet. That's a 40% slope. That's twice your 20%. So there's no buffering there. And I mentioned to Nate, short of any kind of stormwater control mechanisms that somebody would do beyond that 100 feet of the steep slope, if they're not going to do anything, I would recommend, if there were going to be any kind of zoning changes, is that you still have a 100-foot setback from a structure to where the slope starts getting steeper than 20, because you still want that 100-foot buffer, because the 20-foot slope isn't giving you any buffer. But maybe where it plateaus at the top, there's your 100 feet of buffer. Unless you're going to do something on a case-by-case basis, like berm it, direct it toward a buffer. And I had spoke with Colin Clark today. I mean, there's always the possibility of not doing so much spot zoning, but doing split zoning, where lots could be maybe 100 feet or 150 feet of resource protection and the rest in shoreland, but that's going to be something that you would not do for just one lot. You would have to do it for the whole. There's like 11 lots up here, 7 shorefront lots. You'd have to go and look at each one of them and see, okay, is this one only 100 feet of 20% slope? Oh, this one's got 175 feet of 100 or 20% slope. And where are you going to have like these weird lines? I don't know. I don't know what the solution is here, but I mean, there's possibilities, but I don't have any suggestions actually, so.
Thank you, Bill. Could I suggest that, Brian?
Yeah. I just want to say that we're all in agreement with, what Bill says, everyone says. Our greatest natural resource is our waterways. Just ask Poland Spring. And our client would, wants to go past the 100-foot mark, would put a buffer zone in, have a architectural design. And if you go to Boot Cove Lane, what if you guys have been down there, but there's no riprap, there's no check dams, there's nothing. All that water comes down that road to the lake. And our client's willing to, take from his property down the 500 or so feet he has on Boot Cove, put check dams in, put plunge pools in, and really, clean up all the end of that road. So just wanted you guys to know that. So appreciate it.
I would suggest to the board that we do a walkthrough in the near future. All in agreement with that?
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Dwight, you okay with that? So I'd like to schedule the next. Sure.
Hi, Mark Gordon again. I'm actually an abutting landowner, and actually am the one that sold this property to the landowner that owns the land now. Sold that in good faith in 25, changed the rules in 26. And I am certainly, it wasn't for sale. This gentleman came about and we met up. said he was here in Maine looking for a piece of property to buy. And one thing led to another, and we made an agreement on this piece of property that is a buildable lot. We're not denying that. Mark Arsenal confirmed that. So really the question at hand, from what I can understand, is whether or not you can go within that 250-foot mark. Granted, when I sold this property, I didn't promise anything other than the fact that I knew that in the past, as I can't remember your name, sir, but Greg indicated that folks adjacent to him was allowed to build within that 250-foot mark. Granted, I didn't promise anything. It was just mentioned that, look, it's a possibility. You'd have to go in front of the planning board, you'd have to get a special permit, and you'd have to proceed from there. I just want to say that I am not opposed for him to build within, beyond, how do I want to say it, at that 100-foot mark. Because if you look at the property, I would rather not drive down Boot Cove Lane and literally look at something staring me in the face versus what this gentleman is proposing is a very state-of-the-art with builders that have built all over the world, pretty much, certainly in the state of Maine, on probably every body of water that's here in the state of Maine, to build a state-of-the-art home that's going to be hidden in the woods, meeting all the requirements, and him willing, like this gentleman said, to make sure, because that's been a concern of mine because I own the beach that's at the bottom of that hill. And the concern I've always had is, is the way that the water runs down. And they've tried to divert it. They've tried to do this and try to do that. But it still runs down that hill. And I mean, let's face it, it ends up in the pond. So if we've got somebody that's willing to flip that bill to divert that, because really that's the water that we're talking about that's coming down that hill, and build something that's, architecturally, state of the art, that's going to be hidden in the woods and probably have less, to me, it's going to have less impact on that piece of property, the way that the architects have designed this home, than it would be to place something right on that corner. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I'll put it back to you folks.
Thank you. So I'd like to suggest that we do a walkthrough 6 o'clock on the 22nd. That's the next meeting, right? Ryan, is that doable?
That's great. Thank you guys very
Is
much.
that doable?
Yes, very, very much so.
By an agreement? So 6 o'clock on the 22nd?
Thank you guys for hearing us out. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And the date you have, I guess I haven't seen the package, but you've done some work to date as to location or
Yeah,
the site, the plot plan?
Yes, and the homeowner actually loves that land so much. He has a tent out there. He actually tented out there through the winter and loved it.
So Don, where are we at with their input for the application?
With their input, I'm not sure what you mean.
What do you have for an application?
They submitted a full application and it was a good application, actually, very.
Thank you.
complete.
I was proud of it.
It was a great application, but the zoning didn't permit it. So we still have that.
So you have that, okay.
Yeah, but right now, it's really not for consideration because it doesn't meet the zoning.
Why I ask is there anything else we can add to it for them, for that application process in your mind?
I think it's premature.
Okay, all right. So we do the site visit.
Perfect.
We'll go from there. And so if you would plan on us for the 6 o'clock on the 22nd, and then we'll have a discussion back here at the meeting sometime after 7.
Perfect.
And then give you more feedback on your application going forward. David, what are you doing? You have
Thank you, guys.
Hi, I'm Chris Whalen. I just had a question. I caught that you said the ordinance was changed in 2026.
Let's say,
zoning
well,
or-
corrected.
Okay.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Because didn't change. The text in the ordinance did say, in the shoreline provision section, it said 250.
Yeah, but in the table said 100.
Said that, but the more restrictive applies, so it was always.
Right. It just wasn't in the table correctly. So that was where we
The
corrected.
intent was there, but it wasn't documented.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, though.
I want to make sure.
Anyone else? Okay, we're moving on from that one.
You gotta have a microphone.
Okay. Excuse me, wait just a minute.
Microphone.
Bill, do you plan on joining us out there? This gentleman, can you plan on joining us out there? Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, first of all, for those who don't know, I'm the town council representative or liaison to the planning board. That's my only function here. I don't speak on behalf of the planning board. I did, however, serve, more than 20 years on the zoning board of appeals. And one of our concerns was always not to create ordinances and rules that were so complicated that they were overburdensome for codes and unenforceable. And as I hear this, how steep is the lot? You can build 100 feet from the top of the slope. And we're going to have it's going to be like checkerboard square. We need a more generally covered rule. Okay, and I am very much gratified to hear that the planning board is not in favor of spot zoning. That's it.
Thank you.
One individual on the.
One individual on the planning board. I'm
There you
so
go.
sorry.
Let's get it straight. All right, next item.
I have to leave.
Lower Narrows versus Upper Narrows being on the drinking water. In 2007, I worked with the Winthrop Utility District and Maine Rural Water, and we prepared when Cornell Knight, the town manager, worked with us too at the time, and we prepared a surface water protection plan for the Narrows ponds. And one of the main recommendations that came out of there is to maintain the shoreland or water protection zone, drinking water supply zone around both ponds. So that was from the state and for Maine Rural Water and the Winthrop Utility District. And I know the Winthrop Utility District also supports financially the Cobbossee Watershed District, and we have worked very diligently to protect their drinking water supply. And I can tell you is that there's probably no way that Cobbossee Watershed District would be in support of removing the public water supply designation around Lower Narrows Pond, because there are going to be times when you can have flash runoff events, but it won't be enough to trigger outflow down the stream. There is no dam on Lower Narrows. And sometimes during a drought, you can have a 2-inch rain event, but it still won't bring the lake up high enough for there to be an outflow. And you have those summer storms, water levels low. Winds are primarily from the south in the summertime. And I drive that causeway 3 or 4 times a day. I live on Cobbossee. I work in town. I use Narrows Pond back and forth at lunch, everything. There are days there are white caps coming up from Lower Narrows towards the causeway. Pardon?
I've lived on that lake for 38 years.
I see wind on there quite a bit from the south.
It's out of the northeast.
In the summertime,
Follow up on your
prevailing winds.
comment about 2006. It's 20 years since then, and if you look at the science advancements, it clearly shows there are 2 distinct watersheds between upper and lower.
Well, they're still essentially the same lake because they are at the same water level elevation, just like Lake Huron and Lake Michigan.
Upper flows into lower.
Well, I've been working.
They're 2 distinct. I'll let the science speak. I know science is
I am too. I'm a
delicate word.
limnologist with a master's degree, and I've been studying limnology for 40 years, and I've been the executive director at Cobbossee Watershed District since 1992. And yeah, no, it's.
But I just look at Megis. Look at the watershed. There is a distinct boundary between those 2 lakes.
All right, let's have this discussion in the future. Thank you.
Use science.
I just,
I'm just going to say the EPA, federal government, and DEP required a total maximum daily load to be prepared for those lakes. And then we prepared that back in 2004 because Upper Narrows was on the impaired water body list because the bottom water goes anoxic. And they required us to include both the federal government and DEP, both Lower and Narrows Pond, and all the land use in both of those watersheds as part of the same watershed. So.
Okay, thank you, Bill. All right, moving on the agenda. New business.
I have a couple of things.
Andy, see Andy. Thank you.
Just taking off with everybody else.
Bill Monagle, I'm going to reach out to you about those reports because I'm not familiar with them. 2004 and 2007, I wrote down.
Yeah, you know.
Are they digitally online somewhere?
I can't forget.
Okay, I'll follow
Hey.
up with you. So I
Yeah.
do have a couple of things.
Hey, Don.
In regards to the, well, actually, there's a map amendment request this
David,
evening.
can you hear Don?
I'm just pointing to him because there's actually one thing that I had communicated with him earlier that I had indicated I was going to share with you this evening. So there's a potential map amendment. There's a request this evening. And we have been working with potential changes. Thank you. To the zoning map. There was a couple of things that needed to be corrected. We were looking at things like color differentiation. There's some work on the zoning map that we were doing. And now we're having a build out analysis. So there was one of the changes that needed to be made was there was on Clement Lane, there were 3 parcels that were changed from resource protection. The map didn't get changed. So that's going to be one of the changes that I'm going to put on there and I'll call it out, but it's not actually a change, it's a correction.
Correction, okay.
So I just wanted to let you know that that is on the, I guess, and that's going to move forward with those other pieces.
The next item on the other business.
So under other business, I also have, I wanted to note that the next meeting, I have language for you for the different bills that are required to be in place for July. But LD 1829, there was a lot of things people didn't like about it, including myself. But they put forward, they're calling it the Fix-It Bill. It's LD 2173. I'll give you an example of one of the things that it made changes. We talked about the Public Water District. Am I talking super fast?
No. It's just funny that, we waited and it's a good thing we waited because now they're fixing it.
And so the Fix-It Bill. So
good for us.
one of the questions you guys had asked me to look into was we talked about the Public Water District and are we going to have to decrease, are we required to decrease lot sizes because we want to protect, it's a resource protection area. And other people had called that out because yes, we would have had to allow it to decrease. But as part of the Fix-It Bill, they're reanalyzing that so that towns can look at their important resources and not necessarily make 5,000 square foot lots.
Now, did they extend the end date or we still have the July 1?
That is one of the
That's in the Fix-It bill?
Fix-Its would be that they would change it to 2027.
Bonus.
To be continued.
Bonus.
There's a number of different things that I think that are you'll find that you will approve of. And so that I haven't really finished that language yet because
That's okay. If they
I should
give us
do
an
within a
extra
week.
year, that should be nice.
excuse me,
We
but
put that on hold for now, is what you're saying, basically.
well, I've got some draft language, but I don't really want to waste a lot of time on it.
Right. If they're changing it, there's no sense of spending our time on it.
Got it, right.
That's
Anything else, Don?
I don't think I forwarded this to you. There is LD 307 is an act to establish the main data center coordination council and put a temporary excuse me, I'm having a blank here. A moratorium on data centers. We talked about at a recent meeting. Is this something that,
is that something that the town wants to do?
It's at the state level.
Okay, because I was going to say, I did review our ordinance and it's a commercial property and it would fall under large. So it would have to come before us and they would have to meet all of the standards of the large. I didn't send that out because I found it kind of boring, but they would have to come to us and they have to meet all of the standards that are under the large commercial building, even if it's under 2,500 square feet because of the power usage. So they would have to come to us.
So when you had you didn't mention those specifics, but you had that general discussion and said, we've got all this other, on our plate. We're happy to address it if the council directs us.
Right.
Well, the state is actually going to put
Great.
that on hold for now.
No, I'm just saying I used our cheat sheet and I wanted to test it. And I went through it and said, no, this would be large commercial. At least my interpretation is that it would be large commercial, which means they have to come to us and that we would be able to use the large commercial, which means they could only be in the commercial district and in the industrial district, period.
Okay.
So they would not be able to be in rural or anywhere else.
I'll keep you apprised as that moves forward, but we
Okay.
know in the interim if something does come in, because that bill hasn't passed yet, but it's in.
Right, but our ordinance is, as far as I read it, our ordinance is already, I wouldn't say 100% protective, but it already would be coming. They would have to come to us. They can't just say, I'm putting this in and go get a permit from Mark. They have to come before the board.
You have the CUP standard.
Yeah, yep. And they have to meet all of our requirements.
I don't recall if I mentioned this at the last meeting when I received this, but as I'm making changes to the ordinance, I'm using gender neutral language. And it was specifically requested by a member of the public in the council at a council meeting, and it was sent to me. So I think it's something that we were doing anyways, but I just want to make a note that I can send you this document, but it was just a suggestion from the public in terms of our ordinances across the board.
Okay.
Just make sure that it's all gender neutral language. As everything says Hannah right now.
Well, we have some 1980 ordinances, so I mean,
No.
there's some serious updates that need to be done.
Make sure you take all out.
Yeah. Yep.
So I have.
That's right.
I have one more piece of information to share. And that is that we've talked about this briefly in the past, but I really want to push it to the front now. It's that if the definition of subdivision main includes if you divide up multifamily buildings. It used to be 3, now the state's saying it's going to be 5, maybe, right? It depends on the fix-it bill.
Right.
But it's all you can exempt multifamily buildings from subdivision, and you can look at it as site plan if your site plan regulations meet certain standards. If there are certain protections already in place, you can say, so for instance, the mill, you could look at that as a site plan and not a subdivision. It's different. However, I emailed our attorney and I said, so here's the criteria that the state says, hey, if your ordinances meet this, then you can do, review it under zoning and not subdivision. And you actually, I believe you have actually those protections in place under zoning because you have some performance standards, and he agreed. So what I'd like to do is put together a finding for your next meeting, just stating that, yes, here's the state standards. If you agree, and say, here's how you're currently handling it. And you could do what he said on a case-by-case basis, whether you want to review something as subdivision or as a conditional use permit under the zoning, or you could, change the ordinance across the board. But that is an option for you. And because I didn't say site plan, I really didn't think you could do that before, but it sounds like we can. Does that make sense? It's a lot of information.
That it?
That's all.
Well, given we're 5 minutes off, I don't know how we do justice to the solar energy generating system ordinance. So we're going to reschedule that for the next meeting. Is that technically a workshop?
It is a workshop. So the solar and then also the ordinance changes that I've worked on don't fall under the fix-it
Okay.
bill.
So the only application we'll be talking about was the one we had tonight for Boot Cove Road.
So we're going to do a site visit.
The site visit.
Site visit, but I invited him in afterwards to discussion.
Okay, I'll make sure that's
So
on.
we'll put that on the agenda.
It's like,
I know Buco, yeah.
Yeah, but what, I mean, in the parking lot, you said?
So keep going down the road is what you're saying. Okay.
See a little beach.
Go down there. Okay.
Okay. What? Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn? I'm sorry. What, anything else?
Oh, are we meeting here at 6 or on site at 6?
Good point. I'd say the parking lot.
Parking lot here?
Then we'll carpool down, save the number of vehicles. Point.
Well, you can go if
You
you
can
want.
meet
You
us
don't,
there.
you don't,
I live at the end of Gaten Lane.
But anybody wants to ride down together, we'll meet at the parking lot here at 5:45.
at 5:45, okay.
Okay? We'll all pile in Don's truck and Don will take us down. What's that? We'll all pile in your truck and you can take us.
Fine, yeah.
No. Betty, anything else?
I have not.
Don? No. Jamie? I'm trying to hurry you, Jamie.
No,
I'll
I'll take my minivan if we all want to pile in.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Dwight seconded it.
Second.
All in favor? The vote.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.